Welcome to the podcast, Karma is Calling, a space where we are awakening to our bodies, opening our hearts, and remembering who we truly are. We are back with Karma is Calling. This is your host, Lauren, and I'm also here with my little sidekick, Griffey. So if you're watching this on the YouTube, that's this little black thing next to me, my good old pup. So in this episode today, we are going to break down the astrology because my, oh my, is it one in a lifetime things happening, okay? And when such prominent things are happening from an astrological perspective, that's going to be mirrored down here on Earth. It's truly the first time in our life we're experiencing some of these transits, some of the things happening in the sky. No one on Earth has experienced them before. And that is why things are so chaotic, okay? That is why things are shifting at such a fast rate. And remember, astrology is not a causation, it's a correlation. So when things are happening up there, we know things are going to be happening down here. So I'm going to break down a timeline that I see from the past to now. And then when I have my guest on here next week, we're just going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into all these topics. But I do want to just share a little personal story before I dive on in. Last Friday, I actually was invited to a corporate event, and it was such a beautiful experience because a lot of the people who I read for as an astrologer had never experienced astrology before. They didn't really know what's up about it. And they sat down, they gave me their information, and I was able to really hit some important parts in their lives and to watch their eyes just open with awe. It was magical. To watch someone discover astrology for the first time, it is so soul fulfilling because it shows us that there's something bigger beyond ourselves. It takes us out of the ego of, oh, my life, my life, my life. Why am I doing this? Why am I the victim? Why have I continued to make these decisions, right? And then a stranger mirrors back to you maybe some of the really hard things you've experienced, maybe some of the patterns that you hate and want to change. You realize, oh, this is part of the plan. It motivates you. You see things from a bird's eye view, and it just shifts your perspective. And so I just wanted to add that because it was such a beautiful weekend. And the fact that I was invited to a corporate event shows that the tides are shifting within the collective. How we see astrology, how we see tarot, it's not so woo-woo anymore. They've made it woo-woo because they understand that if we had this knowledge, that we would truly change the trajectory of our life. You know, and something else I noticed at the event was how many people are suffering. And someone in my comment section on TikTok was like, I'm so sick of everyone pushing therapy. Like, therapy isn't the end all be all. Yes, it's important to hear your shit, but it's not always therapy. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. But what I noticed when people sat down in front of me, I heard over and over again, I never talked about this with anyone. I've never shared this. I've never shared this. And they became super emotional. And it's not that therapy is the thing that changes everything. It's that therapy is one of the only spaces in our collective that is truly a moment in time where it's focused on you. You get to talk about your emotions. You get to be validated. You get to process. Where else, unless you have some really emotionally intelligent, grounded friends, do you get to do that? Nowhere. Right? We don't live in a community world where we have these women's circles or these men's circles where you get to come together and you get to connect and you get to share. And so I think that that's why therapy is pushed so much. But truly what we need is just more connection. What we need is spaces where people can hold more emotion. I think his name's Trevor Noah. He was just talking about how what's happened with this hyper individualistic society is we were stripped of community, and then we have to pay for it. We have to pay for babysitting. We have to pay for cleaner. We have to pay for a chef. We have to pay for literally anything to create community again. Instead of it just being the village, instead of it being a barter system, instead of it just being natural. If you have my kids today, I have your kids next, right? Like, we've been stripped of that, and it creates a currency. We are craving community. And sitting across from these people, not only were they witnessing that there's something so much larger than themselves out there, which is astrology, the powers that be, which again, it doesn't have to be astrology. It could be human design, it could be tarot, it could be intuitive gifts. It could just be anything that connects you to something other than yourself, other than the ego. But also, I witnessed so many people tapping into some unresolved emotions that need to be released. And if we could trust one another more to talk about these things, to feel seen, to feel heard, and to be held during these things, we wouldn't all be suffering so much, and we wouldn't be suffering in isolation so much. Okay, so that was a little bit of a tangent. Y'all notice my podcast, I typically do tangents, but I want to get straight into the astrology because it's so fascinating right now. So let me just lay some ground things. In astrology, there's going to be an expansive and empowered energy and a shadow energy of every single thing that is happening all the time. So there's going to be a planet in a sign. All right. The planets are the things that are going to be acted out. What is going to be acted out? And the sign is going to be how it's acted out. Okay. So we're going to take Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto, the planet of astrology. What gets initiated with Pluto is death and rebirth. Okay. It's around decaying and clearing out things that are destructive, that are outdated, that are hiding and are in the shadows, that creep through things subconsciously. Pluto is like, hey, let's bring it to the surface. Let's clean that shit out. Let's transfer it to its highest octave and feel empowered. Okay. So that's the purpose of Pluto, evolution. If nature has to die to grow bigger, that is Pluto. Now it's in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign that represents the collective. Now it represents the collective because it is a water bearer. A water bearer in the village was a normal person in the community that would go get water and bring it back. They are part of the larger group. They are always wanting to give back. Think about ways that we can progress forward. Think about ways that we can truly turn the system inside out so that everyone in the group is taken care of, not just the individual, which is the opposite sign, Leo. Leo is the king. Aquarius is the community that the king rules. Okay. So Pluto wants to decay anything that is not community forward. And that's what it was doing when it was in Pluto in Capricorn for the last decade. So in the last decade, it was decaying the systems of the world, the hierarchy, the government, the banking, the housing, all these systems that have been built on corruption have been decaying and become destabilized. So now that Pluto's in Aquarius, we can rebuild them. However, just because Pluto is in Aquarius, it doesn't technically mean that's going to happen. Because again, that's the highest side. That is what we are projecting is going to happen. But there is a low side to everything. And the shadow of it would be control through the mind and through technology. Because Aquarius is so progressive, it rules all these new technologies. It rules intergalactic living. It rules technology that we have gained from different races, aka extraterrestrials, right? So a lot of UFO sightings are coming out that could be our government testing technology that we very much have. And there are a lot of whistleblowers that have said this. And again, we're going to go into this in another episode. But basically, if they have technology that is far beyond what we could imagine already, they want to use that to then control us. Okay. Think about it as like the AI golden age. Think about how there are people in our government that are actively trying to create full on tech cities like DC. Okay. Or if you guys saw that video of an AI generated what they want to do with the homeland of the Palestinians, they want to rebuild it to be this techie world. So that's the shadow of Pluto in Aquarius. And what we do with astrology is we predict from past transits or what has happened within that transit. So when Pluto's at 29 degrees of Capricorn for the final time, our new president was elected. Now, research, things have come out, evidence has come out that potentially there was voter fraud with the technology of the voter booth. Technology, suppression. using technology to control. And Elon Musk has come out and tweeted it that our president would not have won without him. Our own president has come out in January before he was inaugurated and did say, I would not be your president if there was not voter fraud. Like, he said it. So that is telling us that this is going to continue to happen unless we wake up to it. Okay? So then this is where it leads us to the other astrology that's really interesting right now. Uranus is moving into Gemini. And for many of us, this is the first time we're ever going to experience Uranus in Gemini. Or you are like children, because it takes 84 years to get all the way around the wheel. Okay. So the last time it was in Uranus was World War II. Now, when World War II started, it was in like 1939. I could have butchered that, but I'm pretty sure it's around then. And we, as America, entered it when Uranus was at 0 degrees of Gemini, which is happening July 7th, which was like 1941 or something. So people, astrologers are like, oh my gosh, okay, Uranus is in Gemini. That's World War II. Pluto's in Aquarius. Previously, that was the French Revolution, the Haitian Revolution. And then Neptune in Aries, which we'll get to in a sec, was during the Civil War. Now, I look at this a little bit different, but I'm going to continue to talk about these historic times so I can paint you a picture of what all these planets mean in these signs, okay? So Uranus is in Gemini. So what? Let's talk about the what with Uranus. Uranus is the planet of destabilization. The quote for Uranus is expect the unexpected. It destabilizes things so that we can have these aha moments so that our mind can open up to higher levels of consciousness, okay? It's around tapping in to more of like that genius state that we all have access to, the collective unconscious thought. The collective consciousness is very much a thing. So if each individual has a consciousness, okay, then we all are plugged into the collective unconscious. This is Jungian. It was developed in the 1900s, okay? Early 1900s. And that's why each of us impact the greater, that population. That's why each of us, if we heal our own shit, the collective unconscious becomes more healed, yada, 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 okay? So Uranus is that planet that's like, hey, let me destabilize you. Let's create some chaos so you have this awakening moment so that you can become more conscious. So if Pluto is like, hey, I'm going to destroy you and create chaos so you literally have to go through the pain to wake up and heal to wake up, literally burn down to the ashes and rise again, Phoenix, that's Pluto. Uranus is like, hey, I'm going to shock you so you wake up, okay? And it's in the sign of Gemini. So the Gemini is the how. How is this going to happen? Well, Gemini rules over information. Okay? Gemini rules over connection. Aquarius is community. Gemini is also connection, but it's like one-on-one. It's just like chatting with a friend, chit-chatting. Aquarius is like community coming together. So we have two of these massive planets, outer planets, moving into air signs. All around connection, but all around technology and information. So with Uranus moving into Gemini, there's going to be a lot of psychological warfare happening, okay? There's going to be a lot of misinformation being flooded through technology happening. Because the more information we're intaking, the more confused and chaotic we're going to feel. The more ungrounded we're going to feel, right? So think about Uranus was just in Taurus, Pluto was just in Capricorn. Those are earth signs. There was a collective stability happening down here as we built wealth, we built systems, and all of a sudden they're collapsing, and these are air signs, a bunch of change. So with Uranus and Gemini, there's going to be a war on information, and we already see that. What you are consuming is creating your belief systems, and what your belief systems do is how you then react to this world, which we're going to get into in a sec. It's Jupiter. But that is something I really, really want you to be paying attention to, because with AI, you aren't going to understand what's real and what's not real. There are so many videos on my For You page that is AI that you would not know, because AI is that good now. Remember technology using to control us? This is what's going to be happening. For example, After America bombed Iran, there was an AI generated group of American soldiers saying, "Oh, we bombed Iran. Yay." What did it say? It was like, "We are the peacemakers," whatever. And they're like cheering. It had 90,000 likes and it wasn't real. This is why right now it is imperative that you find creators, you find news outlets that you trust. We know mainstream media, you can't trust it. We understand that that is literally being controlled by the same people and they're feeding opposite narratives so that we can oppose each other, right? Break us up, which goes to the fact that Tucker Carlson came out and said Fox News is a propaganda machine. It's reality TV. So you really want to find creators that you trust, that feel stable, that feel grounded, because there is going to be AI information that's spread and then also just false information that's spread. And so I believe that's Uranus in Gemini, the shadow of it. It's also going to want to make people check out because the more they flood us with chaos, it's like a whole script that Trump's administration's doing. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like flood them with information so that they check out, because this is a psychological warfare. This is a tactic. What we know about the human brain is that when we're consuming so much trauma, it makes us feel physically so hurt and uncomfortable that our brain will stop filtering it out and will turn off the emotions in our body. This is called disassociating. This is a defense mechanism. So the more information that's getting flooded to people's phones when they're scrolling, since we're all fucking addicted to our phones and they know that, it's just like gambling. They've literally designed our phones to be like gambling with the music, the sounds, the pictures, all of it. That people are going to not want to pay attention anymore. They're going to be like, "Oh, that's so annoying. I can't. And while I get it, we need to protect our peace. We can't clock out, because if you clock out, then they win and then they control everything. Okay. So finding creators you trust, taking time and space, not getting overwhelmed with the information, and seeing what's happening behind the scenes. And, another thing that's happening right now is they're passing a lot of things behind closed doors or at night or whatever, right? So, but people don't see it. And they're trying to pass things so quickly as well that you forget about it the next day because there's a new headline, right? Think about the Iran threat, World War III looming over us a week ago. That's gone. That was psychological warfare. You know what's happening this week? Supreme Court just ruled that federal judges cannot block the president's executive orders anymore on a nationwide scale. Now, I'm not going to go into the details, but from my understanding, what's basically happening now in the United States is that if Trump rules an abortion ban as an executive order, the only people that can be protected from that are the people who live in states where the federal judge will say, "No, I'm suing the administration and I'm protecting my people. We're not following that," is basically what I'm understanding. But if your judges in your state agree with that, then you as a citizen have to follow that rule or you could get arrested. It's illegal for you. I am sick to my stomach even talking about this. Because one, what's going to happen is now we are so divided as a country. And what's so sad about that is that there are so many people in those states that want what's best for the world and for the collective. And their rights are being stripped from them. Their body autonomy are being stripped from them. Sure, some people can get out. Some people can move to blue states. But the price of living in blue states is very high. And we at blue states take care of the red states. So interesting there. So that means a lot of people aren't going to have the resources to do that. So this leads me into Neptune being in Aries. First time we've ever experienced this. Once again, see, there's a lot of firsts happening, right? It was the Civil War and it was the start of the women's suffrage movement. This is the new age civil war. I don't personally believe we will be out in the streets fighting each other. I believe it's going to be done through technology and through policies. And this is the first step that they're doing, that divide. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, why the fuck would anyone want to control the women's bodies? And if you're listening and you're saying, it's religion, bullshit. For you personally, maybe it truly is. And you know what? You have every right to believe your belief system around abortion. On an individual level, you have every right. But on a collective level, when we're making policies, I don't feel like it's anyone's responsibility to infringe on someone else's free will. And you know what? The religion debate doesn't clock, because if it was truly around these children, these unborn children that these men really, really want to save, then why the fuck are there not more resources for when they're actually born? Full stop. There's absolutely no argument for religion purposes for the government to be making these rules and regulations like in Florida when there is no support for these children. So it makes me wonder why. There's two reasons I come to. Number one, they know that these women who are pregnant, who are actively, consciously making a decision to abort the pregnancy because they understand that they cannot take care of this child. That they understand that this child will endure trauma and doesn't want to suscept their baby to that. They are taking that choice away from these parents to allow these children to be born into trauma, foster care, which comes with trauma, or adoption, which comes with trauma. I have worked with foster care children and adoption children. Of course, there's outliers to this. Of course. There are some magical stories of children being adopted and living such an amazing life. I get that. But the majority people in America right now that are having children because they can't get abortions, their children don't have support because the foster care system is way overdone. In COVID, it collapsed. I was working with children who are actively being abused in their home, and DHS could not remove them because there was nowhere to put them. Imagine now, when most people can't get abortions now in these red states before they even know they're pregnant. Imagine these young parents not being able to take care of their children, let alone maybe there's not an addiction issue. Maybe there's not anything besides the fact that they don't feel ready. And as being a parent, if you don't feel ready and you truly don't feel like you should be a parent, you should not be forced to be a parent, period. It is fucking hard. So it makes me think that these people, whoever the puppet masters, because it's not the government, it's the people behind the government, which again, in other episodes we'll get into, they truly want us to be traumatized. Why would they want us to be traumatized? They can control us. If we are traumatized, we are sick, we don't have energy, we don't have power to liberate ourselves from the system. And the more that they can control the women's bodies, the more that they can breed us as literal, basically robots for children in the workforce, literal slaves. So that the rich, like everyone at Jeff Bezos' weddings, can just live this happy life in this high society while all of us are suffering, traumatized, and I'm sick down here. A billionaire rented out the city of Venice for his wedding, and all the elite showed up. Venice, a city that is literally drowning because of climate change. And how narcissistic and disgusting you have to be to then rent out that city that you have a huge hand in destroying through global warming. Okay, well, I wasn't planning on getting into the weeds of that, but that's what I'm talking about, is the control that they are going to try to create over us if we don't wake up. So let's talk about Neptune and Aries. Neptune and Aries, what is Neptune? Neptune is the planet that rules over unity. Neptune rules over the planet that reminds us that we are spiritual beings. It rules over imaginations and dreams. But in shadow, it rules over illusion. It literally rules over fantasy. It rules over fogginess. It rules over living in this bubble so that you can feel connected and united, but it's an illusion. And that bubble go boop, and then you have this existential crisis, which is what we're leading into, okay? Now, Neptune is in Aries, okay? Aries is a fire sign, and it also rules over the self. It's all about our own needs. It's all about our own passions. It's also around it can be very self-centered, okay? So Neptune has been in Pisces, and it's home sign in Pisces since 2012, okay? And Neptune being in Pisces was really around that spiritual awakening journey, reconnecting us to realizing that we are spiritual beings and we have this intuition. And that was really beautiful journey for so many people. On the flip side, it actually created a double down effect into the illusion of the patriarchy, of capitalism, of control. So if you think back to 2012 and the elections that have happened since then, there has been massive propaganda just being pushed and pushed and pushed to try to control us further. And when we're separated, they have more power, more control, because the collective, right? I talked about the collective unconscious, all of us together, is now separated, and they can control that more instead of us being united, which is what Neptune rules. Unitedness, okay? So that's the shadow that we're seeing. Now, the empowered side of this energy are the spiritual leaders coming out and willing to fight, willing to lead people. The protests that are happening, 13 million people, right, that have come out into the streets during the No Kings protests. That's what's been so empowering with Neptune and Aries. There's actively new set of leaders coming out to lead us. But the delusion and the illusion is only going to get stronger from certain people. And another thing with Neptune being in Aries and with Uranus being Gemini, I've been predicting that boundaries were going to blur between countries or states. And it makes sense, right? If blue states are kind of coming together versus red states, and that's really sad that it's like us versus them mentality. But that's the shadow of Neptune and Aries. The people in power are going to continue to feed that narrative. And this is what I talk about when timelines honestly are splitting, is there's going to be a group of people living in one perception, and there's going to be a group of people living in another perception. Both technically are our own perspectives of things, and both are true to ourselves. Now, to me, there's a duty to the collective, and there's a morality clause within this. So if you are living on a timeline where a person of color is bad for being a person of color, then you're in a warped timeline, because the other timeline would be like, bitch, we're all humans. We're all spiritual beings. Like, yes, we chose these avatars to be birthed in, and we are different on a human level. And I think it's important to acknowledge the differences, because if I'm saying we're all the same, then that's saying there's no color, and that's not real, because the individuals have gone through extreme oppression and trauma for just having different color skin. But should be no hierarchy of that. We killed that timeline when Pluto was in Capricorn. We killed that perception. But if you're still living in that perception, that's that shift. That's that perception shift that's going to be happening here on Earth. A lot of people are going to have very opposing realities. And what's going to happen are the people who are stuck in the fearing people of color, fearing sexuality, fearing spirituality, fearing death, all of that. You're living in fear, where the other people are walking through love. And this is what everyone in the spiritual community is talking about, like timeline shifting. So this is an amazing segue to some dates that I want to talk about. I have notes for this. 2027 is a year of massive shifts happening, okay? And this has been predictions in esoteric channeling books like The Law of One. This has been in human design. This has been in astrology. This has been in the gene keys. All of these separate esoteric art have predicted that 2027 is this massive year of shift down here on Earth. This is where in human design, there is technically this shift that's going to start happening. And it's the transition from, it's called cross planning to cross of the sleeping phoenix. This is the power shift from systems and institutions, which is just like the astrology, right? To individual sovereignty and intuitive intelligence. This is when children are going to be born with new emotional auric templates. Their awareness centers are increased. And this is going to create more emotional depth, more embodiment, and more survival through inner truth. And why this is just so imperative right now as we speak is because how we're going to fight the system is embodiment. Because if you think about what I was talking about with all that information, it puts you in the mind. And if you stay in the mind, the masculine, the patriarch, you abandon the body, and the body is the divine feminine. And the divine feminine is what has been suppressed for so long. Divine feminine is the embodiment. It's our physical body. It's the emotions. It's the softness, it's experiencing, where the divine masculine is action, force, external, the mind, the spirit. New age spirituality, the mind has been pushed to leave our bodies. That was intentional. That's a programming of the patriarchy so that they control our minds. And what's going to happen in 2027 is we're dropping back into our bodies. Well, it's already happening. But that's why this whole push, heal your trauma, heal your trauma. Trauma is stored in the body, right? This all loops back together. And if I lost you, I'm sorry, but it's like I'm just weaving this big quilt that's all being weaved together, because in 2027, these children have more abilities in their body predicted from human design to be able to hold all this stuff. Now, on an astrological level, Neptune's going to be in Aries. It will never go into Pisces during that time. Uranus is in Gemini. Pluto's in Aquarius. So they're in those signs. And so the themes are going to be being played out, where right now we still have Uranus moving back to Taurus, and we still have Neptune moving back to Pisces throughout 2025 and 2026. So that's that. Now I want to add a little tweak to some astrologers' predictions. We have to look at Jupiter and Saturn, because Jupiter and Saturn are the social planets. So if Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto are the outer planets, what's going on in generationally down here, big global events, Saturn and Jupiter are how we're going to respond to those events. And Jupiter is in Cancer and Saturn is in Aries, and they're squaring off currently. And I think that's so important to think about, because squares are tension. So Jupiter's our belief system. It's expansion. It's adventure. It's exploring things, okay, so that we can develop belief systems. It's a very spiritual planet. And it's in the sign of Cancer. And Cancer rules over our emotions. Ding, 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 embodiment, right? Emotions are stored in our body. So it has not been in Cancer for 12 years. Cancer rules over our emotional landscape. Cancer rules over our ancestors. So Jupiter being in Cancer as we speak is expanding not just our emotional body, but it's expanding our ability to tap into our ancestral intelligence, our ancestral wounds as well. So we can heal that lineage and continue to move forward more consciously. Now, we just had a new moon in Cancer with Jupiter right on it. So new moons are new beginnings. The moon, the sun, and Jupiter were all together expanding this energy. Okay. So that was really beautiful to me. I was like, oh my God, this is a new beginning for so many people to intuitively feel into your emotional needs, to process. People were tired. People were upset. Makes sense. We're processing a lot of emotions. This is all squaring, challenging Saturn and Aries, though. So while we are all awakening to our belief systems, having empathy, this is huge. Cancer rules empathy. Oh, and Cancer rules over protection of the vulnerable, like mama bear, okay? So that's squaring Saturn and Aries. What is Saturn? Saturn is where we're going to take responsibility. Saturn is where leaders want to control. Saturn can be pessimistic. Saturn can be controlling. Saturn can be cold. Saturn can be restrictive. But the highest side of Saturn is being hardworking. It's being disciplined. Okay. So that is in Aries. We've talked about Aries with Neptune being in Aries, but it's a very self-driven. So we're seeing certain people really, really fall into Saturn and Aries of being authoritarian and self-directive and feeling like they are so important that they need to control the world, basically. And it's squaring a bunch of us who are just wading in these deep emotions, and it's very overwhelming. Because Jupiter is going to expand. Jupiter is not only going to expand our empathy and our intuition, it's also going to expand emotions. We have to be very, very careful with our emotional health. We need to process emotions. We need to do self-care, which kind of talks what I was talking about in the beginning of this episode is like, it's imperative we work on our emotions right now, because Jupiter is like a faucet. You open it and it will either go everywhere We need like that steady stream. Okay. Because we're emotional. These people are trying to control tension, fighting. But we need to use this square to almost break free. So if diamonds are created under pressure, we want to use the square for that. So we want to use Aries being in Saturn, us feeling disciplined to continue to fight, disciplined to feel our emotions, disciplined to go after what we know we need to go after, tapping into our individual roles within the grand scheme of things. Because each of us have a role down here. You might be clocked in, you might be clocked out. But right now it's the time to clock in because the astrology is only going to be picking up. So that's what this square is happening. And so to me, it's a different lens of, oh my God, there's going to be war. And we're all like, no, I think actually we are awakening so quickly that that's why they're trying to control, and they're trying to create all this psychological warfare and chaos to try to control us out of uniting. But we are uniting. I see that. It's clear. We are awakening. Okay, so now let's talk about what's to come. So July 4th is actually very significant because Uranus is in Taurus, and Venus, the planet of love, pleasure, money, is meeting up with Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. And this is a significant because Uranus rules over destabilization, like I talked about. And Taurus, the sign, rules over resources and values and stability. So Uranus at 29 degrees, a very critical degree that creates chaos at 29 degrees. And it's going to give a grand finale. It's like, hey, I'm leaving. I want you to remember me. Meeting up with the planet Venus. So our values, our money, all of that is going to be shaken while Neptune is retrograding. On the 4th of July, on Independence Day, Uranus is also rebellion. We, as a collective, are coming together. We are fighting for love. We are fighting for our values. And we are willing to go out and show the people that we are. That's what I see from this. While I think there will be chaos, while I think there'll be destabilization, we're already living that every fucking day, you guys. Don't fear the astrology that's coming. We're already living it every day. Use the empowered side of it. You definitely do not have to go out there and march. Not everyone can. Not everyone feels safe, but you have a voice. You can share anonymously, whether you have a blog, whether you have social media. You can share with your loved ones. You can go and write to your representatives. Whatever you feel like you need to do, you have a role. And now clock the fuck in. And if you are saying it's not impacting me now, it will. Okay? So on the 4th of July, I think a lot of people are clocking in because we're supposed to be, quote unquote, celebrating a freedom. It's a scam. It was an illusion that has been popped. So I think a lot of people are going to wake up on that day, right? Because it's going to sink in, oh my God, we're not free. And then with Neptune retrograding, we're all game planning. How are we going to fight the system? We're all coming together. That's what I'm saying. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy at all because the opposition is going to increase. The control is going to increase. They don't want us to be free. But the more of us will outpower. It only takes 3.5% of the population. That's the theory. We had that at the No Kings, and we're only going to continue to have that as what they're doing right now, trying to suppress more people, kidnap more people, take our body autonomy away, all of it. We're awakening. No one wants a war. We want peace down here. We want to evolve together. We want community. So that's the astrology happening. But tune in next week because we are going to be breaking down some of these points I discussed further. Now, my guest next week is named Martson, and she was visited by her galactic family, basically. She had a spiritual awakening. She had one of those out of this world experiences that I felt really drawn to her when I saw her on social media because it felt grounded. It felt like she was a bridge. Just like my goal is to bridge the astrology to what's going on right now. She's a bridge to spirituality, to the humanness. And so I wanted her on this podcast. We instantly just connected, and we're going to get into that next week. But don't miss these episodes. I am telling you, if you've ever wondered about how to connect with your guides, if you ever wondered what's really out there, she's had some wild experiences that will really, really open your mind to what's possible. And we're just going to continue to talk about things and lead people as things ramp up chaotically down here. But again, to show you guys the clarity, the veil is lifting, but there's a path forward. And if we all come together, if you find the people that you value, you trust, we can get there together safely. Okay. So hold hope, clock in where you can, and let's do this. Thanks. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Karma is Calling. I hope today's conversation awoken something within you. And if you found this episode nourishing, please take a moment to follow, rate, and share it with someone else who might need this medicine. You can work with me at thelunarchild.com. Follow me on TikTok for all astrological updates at The Lunar Child, and follow me on YouTube for the long conversations where we do deep dives at Karma is Calling. But until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep answering the call.